I remember my childhood like it was yesterday. Growing up in a poor neighborhood, I was always aware of the struggles my family faced. My parents worked multiple jobs just to put food on the table, but it seemed like no matter how hard they tried, we were always barely scraping by. Our small apartment was cluttered and worn, the walls bearing the scars of years of neglect. The air was thick with the smell of stale cigarettes and yesterday's cooking. It was a bleak environment, one that seemed to suffocate me at times. As a kid, I was always a bit of a scapegoat for the other children in the neighborhood. They would pick on me, call me names, and exclude me from their games. I tried to ignore them to pretend like their words didn't hurt, but it was hard. The pain of being an outcast stung, and I often found myself wandering the streets alone, feeling like I didn't belong anywhere. But the bullying wasn't just limited to the other kids. Even some of the adults in the neighborhood would mock me, make fun of my hand-me-down clothes and my messy hair. It was like I was a target, a punching bag for everyone's frustrations. I began to feel like I was worthless, like I didn't deserve to be happy. One day, while wandering the streets, I stumbled upon a small, run-down boxing gym. The sign above the door read, "Joe's Gym," in faded letters. Out of curiosity, I pushed open the door and stepped inside. The gym was dimly lit, the air thick with the smell of sweat and leather. A figure emerged from the shadows, an old man with a kind face and a twinkle in his eye. "Hey there, kid," he said, his voice gravelly but gentle. "What brings you to my gym?" I shrugged, feeling a little intimidated. "Just exploring, I guess." The old man nodded, his eyes narrowing as he looked me up and down. "You know, I've been watching you from across the street. You look like a kid who's been through a lot. Am I right?" I nodded, feeling a lump form in my throat. No one had ever really asked me how I was doing before or if I was okay. It was like this old man could see right through me, to the pain and the fear that I tried to keep hidden. "Come on, kid," he said, beckoning me to follow him. "Let me show you something." He led me to the boxing ring, where he began to wrap my hands in tape and teach me the basics of throwing a punch. It was awkward at first, but as I started to get the hang of it, I felt a surge of excitement and empowerment. For the first time in my life, I felt like I was doing something just for me, something that made me feel strong and capable. As I left the gym that day, I felt a sense of hope that I hadn't felt in a long time. Maybe, just maybe, I had found a way to escape the darkness of my childhood, to turn my life around and become something more. But as I walked back to my apartment, I couldn't shake the feeling that the bullies and the hardships were still out there, waiting for me. And I wondered, would I be able to overcome them, or would they continue to haunt me forever? I still remember the day I walked into that local boxing gym like it was yesterday. The smell of sweat and worn leather filled my nostrils, and the sound of gloves hitting punching bags was like music to my ears. I had never felt so out of place and yet so at home. After being introduced to boxing by a friend, I started to find a new sense of purpose, something that I had been lacking for a long time. As I began training, I met my coach, a gruff but kind-hearted man who had been in the sport for decades. He saw something in me that I didn't even see in myself at the time: potential. He took me under his wing, teaching me the basics of boxing from stance to punches. I was a quick learner, and soon I was able to keep up with the other trainees. There was Jake, a tall and lanky guy who was always cracking jokes, and Emily, a petite but fierce girl who could pack a punch like nobody's business. The more I trained, the more I discovered my natural talent for the sport. I was agile, quick on my feet, and had a strong punch. My coach would often say, "You're a born fighter," and for the first time in my life, I felt like I was good at something. The confidence and self-esteem I gained from boxing started to seep into other areas of my life. I began to stand up straighter, look people in the eye, and speak my mind. I was no longer the shy, bullied kid I used to be. The gym became my sanctuary, a place where I could escape the troubles of my past and focus on my future. I would spend hours there, training, sweating, and pushing myself to be better. My coach would always say, "Hard work and dedication are key to success," and I started to believe it. I realized that if I wanted to achieve my dreams, I had to put in the effort. And so I did. I trained day and night, honing my skills, building my strength, and perfecting my technique. As I progressed in my boxing career, I started to feel a sense of pride and accomplishment that I had never felt before. I was no longer just a poor boy who suffered bullying. I was a boxer, a fighter, a champion. But little did I know, my past was still lurking in the shadows, waiting to pounce. The demons that I thought I had left behind were still very much a part of me, and I would soon have to face them head-on. Would I be able to overcome them, or would they consume me? Only time would tell. I still remember the rush of adrenaline as I stepped into the boxing arena for my first few matches. The roar of the crowd, the smell of sweat and leather, it all felt so exhilarating. I had finally found my footing, my confidence soaring with each victory. My trainer's words echoed in my mind. "You've got the heart of a warrior, kid. Now go out there and show them what you're made of." As I won match after match, I started to make a name for myself in the boxing world. People began to take notice of the poor boy who had risen from the ashes, who had been bullied and belittled but had never given up. The recognition was overwhelming, but I tried to stay focused, knowing that complacency could be my downfall. I recall walking into the locker room, and for the first time my peers looked at me with respect. They nodded in acknowledgement, whispering words of encouragement. It felt surreal, like I was living a dream. Sports journalists started to take notice of me, asking for interviews and writing articles about my rags-to-riches story. I tried to stay humble, knowing that all of this could be taken away in an instant. But with success comes challenge, and my first major test was just around the corner. I was scheduled to fight a tough opponent, someone who had been in the game for years, with a reputation for being merciless in the ring. I watched videos of his fights, studying his technique, trying to find weaknesses. My trainer and I worked tirelessly on a strategy, knowing that this fight wouldn't be just about brute strength, but about mental toughness and outsmarting my opponent. As the day of the fight approached, I could feel my doubts and fears creeping in. What if I wasn't good enough? What if I failed? The pressure was mounting, and I knew I had to find a way to overcome it. I thought about all the times I had been bullied, all the times I had felt like giving up, but I had never let that happen. I took a deep breath, focusing on the present moment, and reminded myself that I had come too far to let fear hold me back. The question was, would it be enough? Would I be able to overcome my doubts and fears to emerge victorious against my toughest opponent yet? The uncertainty was killing me, but I knew I had to stay focused, to trust in my training and my abilities. The stage was set, the crowd was waiting, and I was ready to put everything on the line. I still remember the feeling of hitting rock bottom, like I'd been punched in the gut and couldn't catch my breath. After facing my toughest opponent, I thought I'd reached the peak of my career. But little did I know, my greatest challenge was yet to come, confronting my inner demons. The memories of being bullied as a kid, of growing up in poverty, they all came flooding back, and I felt like I was drowning in a sea of self-doubt. I started questioning my abilities, wondering if I was truly good enough to be a champion. The fears and doubts crept in, whispering in my ear, "You're not worthy, you're just a poor boy from the wrong side of the tracks." I felt like I was losing myself, like I was disappearing into a dark cloud of uncertainty. That's when I knew I needed help, someone to talk to, someone who could help me navigate the treacherous waters of my mind. That's when I met Dr. Jenkins, a sports psychologist who specialized in helping athletes overcome their mental barriers. She had this warm, gentle smile and these piercing brown eyes that seemed to see right through me. We started meeting for therapy sessions, and at first it was tough, really tough. I had to confront the bullying and poverty of my past, to relive the memories that I'd tried so hard to suppress. But Dr. Jenkins was patient, guiding me through the process, teaching me the power of mindfulness and self-reflection. She helped me understand that my past didn't define me, that I had the power to choose how I reacted to it. We worked on building my confidence, on finding ways to channel my emotions into my boxing. It wasn't easy, but slowly I started to feel like myself again. I started to see that I wasn't just a poor boy from the wrong side of the tracks. I was a champion, a warrior who had overcome incredible odds to get where I was. As I walked through my hometown, I saw it in a different light. I saw the poverty, the struggle, but I also saw the resilience, the determination of the people. I realized that I wasn't alone, that there were others out there who were fighting their own battles, their own fears and doubts. And I knew that I wanted to be a symbol of hope for them, to show them that no matter what life threw their way, they could overcome it. I started to focus on my training, to pour all my emotions into my boxing. I could feel the fear and doubt melting away, replaced by a sense of purpose, of determination. I was ready for the biggest fight of my life, ready to face whatever challenges came my way. But as I stood there, looking out at the crowd, I couldn't help but wonder, would I be able to stay focused and composed under pressure? Only time would tell. I still remember the day I decided to go for the championship title like it was yesterday. The fire in my belly, the determination in my eyes, and the roar of the crowd in my ears. It all felt so surreal. With my mental toughness and strategy in place, I knew I had a real shot at becoming the greatest boxing champion of all time. My training regimen was intense, to say the least. I spent every waking moment thinking about boxing, practicing my punches, and perfecting my footwork. I would wake up at 4 a.m. every day, head to the gym, and train for hours on end. The sweat, the blood, the tears, it all seemed worth it when I thought about the championship title. My coach would often tell me that I was a natural, that I had a gift, but I knew that it was hard work and dedication that would take me to the top. As I climbed the ranks, I faced some of the toughest opponents in the sport. Each fight was a challenge, a test of my skills, my strategy, and my mental toughness. There were times when I felt like giving up, when the pain and the exhaustion seemed too much to bear. But I would look back at my past, at the bullying and the struggles I had faced, and I would find the strength to carry on. I would tell myself that I had come too far to turn back now, that I owed it to myself to see this journey through to the end. The media attention was overwhelming, to say the least. I would attend press conferences, give interviews, and pose for photo shoots. It all felt so glamorous, so exciting, but deep down, I knew that it was all just a distraction. The real work happened in the gym, in the quiet moments when it was just me and my coach. The media would often ask me about my strategy, about my opponents, about my chances of winning. I would smile, nod, and give them the answers they wanted to hear, but deep down, I knew that it was all just a game. I gained a massive following, with fans cheering me on from all over the world. It was a strange feeling, knowing that so many people were rooting for me, that so many people believed in me. But I tried not to let it go to my head, to stay focused on the task at hand. I would read messages from fans, thanking me for inspiring them, for showing them that anything is possible with hard work and determination. It was a heavy responsibility, but it was one that I was willing to bear. Now, as I stand at the threshold of the championship match, I can feel the momentum building up inside me. The question on everyone's mind is, will I be able to capitalize on this momentum and win the championship title? Only time will tell, but one thing is for sure, I am ready to give it my all, to leave everything I have in the ring. The road to the championship has been long and arduous, but I am ready for whatever comes next. Bring it on, I say, bring it on. I stood at the entrance of the championship arena, my heart racing with anticipation and nerves. The crowd was deafening, a sea of screaming fans all eager to witness the biggest match of my career. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of my journey so far. From being a poor boy who suffered bullying to becoming a boxing champion, it had been a long and arduous road. But I wasn't here to think about the past. I was here to win. As I made my way to the ring, I caught sight of my opponent's corner men. They looked confident, almost smug, and I could tell they thought their fighter was going to take me down. But I wasn't intimidated. I had trained for this moment my entire life, and I was ready to give it my all. The bell rang, and the match began. My opponent came at me with a flurry of punches, but I dodged and weaved, using every trick in the book to evade his attacks. I landed a few good hits, but he was tough, and he kept coming back for more. The rounds went by in a blur, each one a testament to my endurance and determination. At one point, I found myself against the ropes, my opponent's fists flying towards me like a hail of bullets. But I refused to back down. I dug deep, finding a reserve of strength I didn't know I had, and I fought back. The crowd was on its feet, cheering and chanting my name, and I fed off their energy. As the final round came to a close, I was exhausted. My arms felt like lead, my eyes were blurry, and my lungs were burning. But I knew I had given it my all. I had left everything in the ring, and now all I could do was wait for the judge's decision. The outcome of the match was far from certain. My opponent had been tough, and I knew I had taken some damage. But I also knew I had landed some good shots, and I had fought with every ounce of strength I had. As I stood in the ring, waiting for the announcement, I thought about the true meaning of victory and defeat. Was it just about winning or losing, or was it about something more? And then the moment of truth arrived. The announcer's voice boomed through the arena, and I heard the words I had been longing to hear. And the winner by a split decision is... My heart stopped as he paused for dramatic effect, and then he said my name. I had done it. I had become the champion. As I stood in the ring, my arms raised in victory, I felt an overwhelming sense of pride and accomplishment. I had come a long way from being a poor boy who suffered bullying, and I had proved to myself and everyone else that I was a true champion. But as I looked out at the sea of faces, I knew that this was just the beginning. What would be the aftermath of the championship match, and how would my life change forever? I still remember the day I won the championship like it was yesterday. I was on top of the world, with my arms raised in victory and the crowd cheering my name. But little did I know, that was just the beginning of a whole new set of challenges. As I walked out of the ring, I was met with a sea of faces, all wanting a piece of me. The media was clamoring for interviews, sponsors were knocking on my door, and fans were begging for autographs. It was overwhelming, to say the least. At first, I struggled to cope with the pressure. I had gone from being a relatively unknown fighter to a household name overnight. Everywhere I went, people recognized me, and it was hard to keep up with the demands of my newfound fame. My family and friends were thrilled for me, but they also noticed the change in me. I was constantly busy, always on the go, and never had a moment to myself. My mom would often tell me to stay grounded, to remember where I came from, and to never forget the people who supported me along the way. But it wasn't easy. The more I gave into the fame, the more I felt like I was losing myself. I started to question whether all of this was worth it. Was it worth sacrificing my relationships, my health, and my sanity? I felt like I was living in a bubble where everything was superficial and nothing was real. That's when I realized that I needed to use my platform for something more meaningful. I started attending charity events, visiting schools, and speaking to kids about the importance of perseverance and hard work. My hometown, which had once been plagued by poverty and violence, was now looking up to me as a role model. I felt a sense of responsibility to give back, to show them that there was a way out, that they too could achieve their dreams with determination and grit. I worked with local organizations to set up boxing gyms and mentorship programs, providing kids with a safe space to learn and grow. It was fulfilling, to say the least, and it helped me stay connected to my roots. As time passed, I learned to navigate the complexities of fame and fortune. I surrounded myself with people who had my best interests at heart, and I made sure to prioritize my well-being above all else. I still had my moments of weakness when the pressure became too much, but I knew that I had a purpose, a reason to keep going. And as I looked out at the sea of faces all cheering my name, I knew that it was all worth it. I had become a champion, not just in the ring, but in life. And I was determined to use my platform to inspire others, to show them that with hard work and dedication, they too could achieve greatness. But as I stood there, basking in the glory of my victory, I couldn't help but wonder what the future held. Would I be able to sustain my success, or would I succumb to the pressures of fame? Only time would tell. I still remember the first time I stepped into a boxing gym, a scrawny kid with a big dream and an even bigger chip on my shoulder. I had been bullied and belittled for so long, but in that moment, I knew I had found my escape. The sound of punching bags, the smell of sweat, and the feeling of worn leather beneath my fists, it all became my sanctuary. As I look back on my career, I'm amazed at how far I've come. From those early days of struggling to make ends meet, to becoming the greatest boxing champion of all time, it's been a wild ride. I think about all the sacrifices I made, the early morning runs, the endless hours of training, and the countless times I had to push myself to the limit. It wasn't easy, but it was worth it. Now, as I pass on my knowledge and experience to the next generation, I'm reminded of the power of perseverance, hard work, and dedication. These young boxers, my protagonist, look up to me with the same wide eyes and eager hearts that I once had. I see myself in them, and it motivates me to keep pushing forward, to keep giving back. I've been to some of the toughest boxing gyms and training camps in the world, but none of them compare to the gym where it all started for me. The creaky floors, the faded posters on the walls, and the old-school trainers who taught me the sweet science of boxing. It's all still etched in my memory. And as I walk into a gym now, I'm not just a champion, I'm a mentor, a teacher, and a leader. My legacy is not just about the titles I won or the records I broke. It's about the lives I've touched, the kids I've inspired, and the communities I've helped. I think about the kids who were just like me, struggling to find their place in the world, and how my story can be a beacon of hope for them. I want them to know that no matter what they're going through, they can overcome it. They can achieve greatness. As I look out at the next generation of boxers, I know that my story is far from over. It's just beginning, in fact. The torch has been passed, and it's up to them to carry it forward. I'm excited to see what the future holds, to see how they'll use the lessons I've taught them to forge their own paths and create their own legacies. My journey has been a long and winding one, full of twists and turns, but it's led me to where I am today. And as I stand here looking out at the world of boxing, I know that I've left my mark. I've made a difference, and that's all any of us can really ask for. The rest, as they say, is history. But for me, it's not just about the history books. It's about the impact I've had on the people, the sport, and the world. And that's something that will live on long after I'm gone.